Well, happy long Easter weekend. Today I was wanting to talk about what I've been thinking about because I have had the privilege of living in both low socioeconomic electorates, like in Western Sydney, in northern New South Wales, and now I live in a very privileged North Shore electorate. So I have literally seen how both sides live and how the issues that people in these kind of electorates give the rest of the nation sermons on, those like ideological high points that they want to give us all a lecture. They never have to confront the consequences of the ideologies that they preach. So I live in the electorate of Warringah, so that is Zali Steggall's. And one thing that has constantly frustrated me with the Teal or independents is I think that the truth about these independents is that they are teal on the outside, red on the inside, communist teals. And they all run on the same nonsense ideological platforms, and it just serves the morally faulty conscience of these elite few in these electorates at the cost of working class women. And I'm talking about, people like Zali Steggall, Allegra Spender, Kylea Tink, and others who claim to be independent, but then conveniently just repeat and advocate for exactly the same policies, the same talking points. And we can almost be certain then that they're just puppets for a higher force. They're all bankrolled by Simon Alacourt, who is funding these women, and they're essentially nothing without him. So it's not women who are really behind this. And I think it'll be interesting, let's just look at the track record, at the autobiographical track record of Zali Steggall, on her website. So if we go into Zali's website here, we can see the first thing, the number one, if we go into policies, the first thing is improve female workforce participation and equity. Well, let's not even go into that word, but female is in the first centerpiece of her policies, and it's also in the third one, improve women's safety and security. Now this is an important one, and this is a contradiction of these women who are running on an essentially liberal feminist platform where women are front and center of their campaigning, and yet when it comes to the core and center of these issues, these women are either silent or, in Zali's case, actually advocating for the right to erase the rights of women completely, which is what's happening. And so I have already made a long video on Zali Steggall's track record of advocating for the inclusion of biological males into female sport. And this is just despite considering that this woman was a medalist at the Winter Olympics, and considering that this woman would know firsthand the sacrifices and everything that goes into becoming an elite athlete and achieving success at that level, everything that those girls give up. Zali knows that firsthand. And knowing this, how can she not be an authentic advocate for true fairness and equality in sports, which is for women and girls? I mean, is there any possible way that Zali really believes that the words that are coming out of her mouth? And I actually have a personal encounter with Zali Steggall that left me very distraught and upset. And this was over a year ago, and this was when, speaking up about this issue, I used to be a lot more sensitive, and Zali's response to me, actually, it made me cry. I walked away wondering, really, there's nobody on my side with this. And this comes back to the policies where she talks about women and girls' safety. So this was around the state election time when Zali was campaigning with another candidate who was who was also running for the seat of Warringah, the North Shore. So Zali's a federal, and she was campaigning with a state member. And I approached the state member, and she was with Zali, and they were both by themselves, so no one was around them. And I asked, I think her name was Helen Conroy or something. She didn't end up getting voted in, but I asked her what she thought about the state self-ID laws that Alex Greenwich has been trying to bring in for a long time, and if she supported that. She responded that she wasn't sure what that is, to which, and I explained to her that this would be allowing biological men into women's spaces, to which Zali Steggall interjected the conversation and told me that they are not men. So she's insinuating that they are women, and I was kind of put off guard by this, because I was like, well, I was expressing my concern about having fully fledged males with full intact male genitalia in my 8-year-old daughter's space. To me, she absolutely has the right to enter a female-only space and expect there to only be females. And Zali's only response to my concern as a single mother was to tell me that they are not men, that they're women. So she was gaslighting me to the end extreme, and it was kind of like, it was quite confronting to me. And then I said, well, actually they're men, Zali. To which she asked me, do I have a problem with transgender people? Now, because transgender is not a legitimate medical term, I believe in transsexuals and transvestites and a social contagion. I said, well, I'm not really sure about what transgender is. And her response was actually to laugh at me and to say, well, I'm glad we finally got to that point. And they looked at each other and they walked away from me. So I was quite just distressed after that encounter, because I really did think that approaching her with legitimate concern as a mother would elicit some kind of response that wasn't denigrating me or insinuating that I just have a problem with people who want to identify as the opposite sex. So I think that Zali's liberal feminism is a complete virtue signal. It's along the same lines as that fake virtue signaling. If Zali's telling me that these are not men, in this policy she wants to increase shelters and refuges for women, and she would be allowing men into those spaces. Now, I can tell you right now, it's not women in this electorate that are really accessing and needing women's refuges and women's spaces. It's women out in the electorates that I've been in, and I've lived out in Campbelltown where there's a high Indigenous population out there. These are women that consume these services, and they're the women that have been absolutely silenced and without a voice on this. And then we have a woman like Zali Steggall pretending to be the champion of women's rights, basically condemning these women to be subject to men who, I'm sorry, but have the same kind of predatory tendencies as likely the men that they're trying to escape. I mean, the saying is, good men stay out so bad men stand out, for a reason. Any man that wants to be in women's and a women's space, they are not normal men to begin with. If this gender dysphoria is legitimate, then they're transsexual, then they have a legitimate mental illness. Are they then safe around women who are traumatized, experiencing homelessness, more than often actually hiding and running away from an abuser? I just like, people like Zali Steggall will never have to come face to face with this. And in these woke electorates like that, that is like the really frustrating part in all this.